Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So today I have an incredible guest. Tilo is coming on board. Tilo is an incredible PR guru. Uh, he's an ambassador for innovation and value-adding investor. He likes to drive global marketing, global leadership to be able to help brands to be able to access global markets. He's the founder and CEO of the Berlin-based Piabo, premier business performance amplifier and premium brand building public relations agency. So with that, I'd like to bring my friend Tilo on. Hi, Tilo. How are you today?
Gary, hi. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So where are you today? You in Berlin?
I'm not in Berlin. I feel, even as you said, Berlin is our headquarter. I'm all over the world. As you know, we have a lot of Silicon Valley tech heavyweights as our clients, like Google, Stripe, Shopify, GitHub, etc. So I feel my home is the airport more than Berlin it is. But today I'm actually in Dubai. I was speaking here at the conference, and but going back soon to Berlin.
No, it's great to see you. So, you established Piabo to provide tech entrepreneurs with the dynamics to be able to bring them to market and subsequently grow the business, the core business, to support entrepreneurs and businesses. So, how is it today, Tilo? There's a lot of changes taking place in the marketplace. I know the last time we spoke was probably a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, but the market's changed a bit. What's the feeling like right now?
I mean, overall, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? When you look at how entrepreneurs have to make tough decisions these days in both directions. There's one part that talks about layoffs, that talks about valuation, down rounds, etc. On the other hand, there are entrepreneurs that going all in and using this market conditions as an opportunity and hiring the best people and investing in new technologies like AI, etc. And there's always been two sides of the coins, but we see, of course, that also the demand changes, right? We have, of course, much more cases now where it's about crisis communication, right? And where people hold leadership accountable for certain things, where there are cybersecurity threats, right? And many other topics that maybe have not been so much in demand, let's say 2 or 3 years ago. So things change, and I think overall I'm a very positive and optimistic person. The market conditions will be never stable, right? There will be always things that we have to adapt and adjust. That's what entrepreneurship is also about, right?
Well, I mean, that's it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the market go up and down and in and out. And quite frankly, when these kind of changes take place, what happens is those people that are laid off or leave, those companies end up starting more startups. So there's another cycle of startups in 3 or 4 years that you're going to start to see that are I already see those companies starting. So it's kind of interesting because we're getting the calls and it's incredible, right? It's like on one side, for startups is probably the best thing. So this is when they start. So
right. And when you look at the vintages of the VC funds, that are often the ones that started in the crisis are performing the best, right? So it's also a truth.
Well, the other thing is I deal with a lot of ultra high net worth individuals and family offices. So the institutional investors are kind of slowed down a bit, but the family offices and the corporates are actually ticking up from my perspective, the ones I'm dealing with.
Absolutely. I mean, and the reason is also that here it's also another fact comes in why they're doing it. It's not just about the money. It's also about their own core business, their family business, often in the middle of the process of digital transformation, right? They need the access and want the access to new technologies, working with startups together because they're also in the midst of cultural change or technological change. They're getting disrupted by the next generation of technology companies. So they have no choice.
So you've been going down through this, for some time, from coming out and working at the OTW advertising as a consulting and project manager the communication in Munich. So you've seen a lot of changes taking place, Tilo, during your time, right? From 2000, 1998 to the present. What's changed, right? How different is it in terms of PR and marketing? I know that you said some things to me before, and I'll never forget them. You said consistency is important.
And it's not only consistency, right? I mean, I always refer to the two C four C's. First of all, it's clarity, right? You have to be clear about what is your message, what do you stand for, what is your why, how, what, etc. Your unique communication point, etc. Right? It's often that thing that entrepreneurs struggle with, right? I mean, you can talk with them for 2-3 hours, they're explaining what they do, but bringing it down to one sentences and be clear about what you do and what you stand for and your positioning. That's often something that entrepreneurs struggle with. And the second thing when it comes to consistency, right? That you always stick to the message and be consistent about your positioning, what you want, what your mission, vision, goals are as a founder. Not that you say in the one podcast the one thing, and the other podcast the other thing, right? And you tell the one investor the one story, and the other one another story, right? This kind of consistency is very, very important. But then also continuity, right? Continuity in a way of they give up too early, right? They think, oh, I did one LinkedIn post that didn't perform. LinkedIn is not the right platform for me, right? We all know you have to stick to it. You do have to do it over and over and over again, and build your followership, right? And so it's all these C's come together, right? Clarity, consistency, continuity, and this is something that is then valuable. All these things come together and form like a house of trust, right? Also, and this is something that, especially in that world, is very important. And that forms then to the by the way to the fourth C, the credibility, actually, right? That you build, that you stand for something. People realize, oh, this is the man who, whatever, the superstar, the guy who is always into AI, or the lady who has this new whatever fertility app or whatever it is, right? You stand for something, and only when these four things come together, then you can also be successful. Because especially now in a world with a lot of volatility, and you have seen what happened in the last couple of months to the Web3 blockchain crypto scene, right? And it's all about trust at the end of the day, right? And trust is a confident relationship kind of with the unknown. And what startup founders do is doing, first of all, something that is unknown, right? They're starting with a blank sheet of paper. They have an incredible world-changing idea, but nobody knows them, right? And they have to build trust. And often what they build, the solution that they provide to a problem. For example, someone wants to found, let's say, a neobank, a new neobank, right? So a new mobile bank, but everyone has a bank account, right? So why now I should go from my traditional bank that is stable and I would know my money will be there and it will be not gone tomorrow, now to this new, let's say, banking app, for example, right? They have maybe some new fancy features, but will they be there in 6 months, right? Will they get to the next funding round, et cetera, et cetera? So this kind of bridge, this kind of trust gap, that's the job of the founders that they need to close. And that's something where the example of the 4 C's that we talked about, where you like one C in particular, that is all about, right?
I'll tell you the one C, you pick it out. You're right. Clarity, consistency, and credibility. It's really important. So and that's part of building your own brand, right? That's part of building brand of the company as you go forward. So have you gone down through, so, I don't know, we have 127 companies in our portfolio today now. And a lot of them are technical founders, and they don't get marketing, they don't get sales, they don't get business development. They think they need it, but they're not sure what it is. And they have, incredible ideas. But for them, it's really hard to come up with clear and consistent messages and to be able to access those markets, right? They'll come up with something, a flying car, they'll have some kind of technology, but this thing is 8 to 10 years out, but they want to generate revenue in another 2 to 3 years, right? So, and I hear that a lot. How do you get those technical founders to understand the value of PR, Tilo?
I think, first of all, often they come to me and say, "Oh, Tilo, yeah, I understand what you're doing, but you know what? I'm just a boring B2B company. You know what? I mean, you're right with this kind of attitude, right?" When I say, you know what would a Stripe, Shopify, GitHub ever refer to them as a boring B2B company? Never. That's not an excuse, right? And then they say, yeah, but I want to let my product speak for me. My product is so amazing, it's better than everything. It's like, yeah, but your product can't speak, right? People follow people, right? Look how many followers, let's say Apple have on Twitter, and how many followers Tim Cook has, right? How many followers Bill Gates has on Twitter, and how many followers Microsoft on Twitter. The person, the human being, always outperforms the company. It's always the case in every single instant, right? And then I have to tell them, you know what? And then they often complain and say, yeah, but the press always writes about whatever my competitor, but we are, let's say, for example, cheaper or faster or more secure or whatever, right? They always tell them, you know what? It is not about to be the best, right? It is nothing worse to be the best if the other one sells better, right? And that's
Yeah, I mean,
another very
sometimes the one
important
that's the
lesson
best
that they need
doesn't
to
win.
know.
Sometimes the one of the best doesn't win, right, Tilo? I mean, because they're
That's what I'm
outmarketed.
saying, right? That's unfortunate, but that's a fact that often maybe when you watch TV or something, you see often people are like so-called experts that are interviewed saying, "Oh no, I'm much more knowledgeable about the topic than this guy." But they are seen, they are heard, they are selling themselves better, right? So it's unfortunately the truth that just being good is not good enough, right? To be successful and be heard of, right? And last but not least, we have to also face the truth here. In the end of the day, you have to be in control of your brand. That's a leadership requirement. And we see that often that, of course, there's gossip and rumors, etc. And if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And you don't want that.
Yeah, you're right. And they may, look
You
at
should be in
friends
control of
share.
your story, right? That's your responsibility. Be in control of your story.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, um, what's the characteristics if you look at companies that are the best in terms of being able to utilize PR? I mean, I think it's across the board, just from my opinion. I mean, it's like, when you have somebody like yourself that can work with them and help them, the consistent messages, coming up with the clear target of who to go after, um, all those pieces. Oh, the other thing is sales, right? Sometimes those technical founders don't understand how important salespeople are to the process,
Yeah.
right?
And by
And
the
how
way, these things go often hand in hand, right? I mean, we see that often when, for example, there's a B2B company and we place them in, let's say, in an industry magazine or at a stage of an industry conference, etc. I mean, they're getting sales leads, they're getting people saying, "Oh, interesting, I haven't thought about that, but it's a good solution. We always had this problem, but you're providing the solution to this problem." So that's very important to see these things go hand in hand. Often founders complain about long sales cycles, but obviously a good PR, right? When the customer reads about you in a newspaper, etc., that's of course helpful. And you know what? The more pricey a product is, right, the more you want to charge. The often of people do more research, right? They Google your name, etc., and of course they're finding then your ads and your website, etc. But if they find an article, let's say in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or in TechCrunch, that maybe helps them, that fosters their reputation, that helps them to build trust and confidence that even corporates and big enterprises say, "Oh, this solution seems to be viable. We should do that because the New York Times has featured it and they've been on the stage at this big conference and they've been interviewed in this famous Gary Fowler podcast, right? So they must be a good company, right? So, and this is something that often is underestimated from founders. And these articles and podcasts and appearances, they can be used also quite easily then from the sales team, and they can approach clients and have
yeah,
you seen our CEO was speaking here at this conference, or he gave an interview in that podcast, or he was at an article in that magazine. That's things that can keep the ball rolling, and so these things go hand in hand. They're not isolated, right? And good communication, strong storytelling helps in so many areas. I mean, you talked about sales and winning clients, but what about, for example, employer branding, right? We all want to attract the best talent, right? You want to
right.
be a talent a magnet for talent, right? We want to have whatever our next funding round is coming, right? We should be a magnet for investors. We need partnerships, policymakers, etc. So there are many stakeholders in a company that can be addressed with good communication.
Yeah, no, you're right about it. The communications is critically important, and getting those companies to realize how important it is and to be able to utilize the resources. And you're right about it. Once you have, we talk about the show, and I tell people that are on the show, use it. I mean, if you need it for your collateral, give you credibility. I mean, it's just We've had 4-star admirals. We've had billionaires on the show. We've had people like yourself, incredible, the best PR person in the world. You're here, and we go down through and look at it, and you gotta use it. You gotta use what you have. It's like having a Ferrari in the garage. If you don't take it out of the garage, right, and
Yes.
drive it around, only you know it's a Ferrari. Take it out, show people what you got. But the most important thing is, can you win Formula One, right? So get the
Correct.
Ferrari
Absolutely.
out of the garage. And I tell them all the time, you got to do it. Well, especially from Eastern Europe, a lot of the tech founders are very modest. They don't like to talk about what they have, right? How good it is, how exciting, or as my friend Guy Kawasaki says, how enchanting it is. But enchantment is important. Painting pictures with words. Being able to
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is also about really the founders have to realize it's about them, right? I mean, the golden circle from Simon Sinek that says you always start with why, because you can say what you do and how you do it, but you should start with why. But I feel there is always a dimension missing. It is who's actually doing it and who is saying it, right? And who is the hero actually of the story? And it's often the founder, right? And I mean, we all know the Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos of this world, right? I mean, we know them, we find them, however we find them, what opinion we have, but we remember them, right? We follow their stories, we follow what they do and what they're posting on Instagram because we are curious about them, and they can make or break the stock price. They can make us buy their products, etc. Right? And it is about storytelling. For example, I just come one good example to my mind. Remember, as Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, right? I mean, your founders, as you described them, they would maybe say, "Oh, here, this is iPod. He has such so and so many gigabytes, and it's very well manufactured, and it's very secure, and we have whatever 500 hours of play, and there's a nice cable attached to it, etc." That's too many facts. People don't like facts. People forget about facts like in 5 seconds, right? Steve Jobs, what was his unique communication point as he introduced the iPod? He was saying, "What if you could have 1,000 songs in your pocket?"
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I remember
That's
that. Yeah.
something that creates a picture. I think, oh yeah, we all love music, right? And oh my God, 1,000 songs, right, in my pocket. Wow, that's right. Who cares about how much gigabyte that is, right? And how much? What I mean, nobody cares, right? Don't use facts, use emotions, right? Get connected with people, right? And that's how what people connect to, right? And personal experiences, emotions, great stories, give them a solution to their problem. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you want them to feel it. You want to have them to feel the words. And if they feel the words, they'll take it to heart. I remember Steve Jobs when he introduced the iPod Nano, he had a pair of jeans on, as he always did, and for the most part, and he put it in the little pocket. He said, I
Yeah.
always wondered what this pocket was for in my jeans. And this little tiny pocket.
And
Now I
small
know
one, right? Yeah,
yeah, it's for the iPod Nano. And he
yeah,
pulled it out.
yeah. It's
People were like,
incredible.
yay!
Absolutely.
And so,
Yeah.
but that showmanship's important to be able to get up and speak to those audience and grab them and make them excited and enchanted and really feel the product. And you're right. A lot of the technical founders go down through and they talk so much about the technology that you don't have any passion. And, okay, the gigabytes, the zettabytes, the technical specifications.
Specifications. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't like make you feel it. You know what I mean? It's like,
That's exactly the point, right? I mean, as I talked about, it's not you don't need to be the best. I mean, to be honest, there are phones in the market that are from a technology standpoint much better than the iPhone, right? They have much better camera, or when it comes to storage or whatever it is. In many, there are better phones out there, but we're all having our iPhone because we love it. We have connected to it. We feel emotions about it, and that's in many ways. I mean, imagine I could just have here on my desk a no-name glass of water, right? That costs whatever 30 cents or 20 cents, etc. But we're all willing to buy for $3 a bottle of Evian, right? We believe the brand. It's nice packaging. We like to walking around the street. Or take Starbucks, right? You could just get a normal filter coffee out of the machine. It costs you almost nothing. But we're all running to Starbucks, having then paying $6 for a chai latte, whatever. creative things, because it's a brand, and the brand stands for something. It stands for safety. It stands for an incredible product. We know that the quality standards are met. We are part of a community, right? And it's also with the logo that we're running around with this cup in the street. That's also kind of a lifestyle, a feeling, right? And that's something that's underestimated, right? It's the same product, but priced to a totally different point. And that's what we don't have to forget, that this is what a strong brand, a strong narrative is all about. It also has a direct impact on what we can charge for something, etc. Right?
So, you've done a lot of this. So tell me about, you don't have to name the names unless you want to, but how have you seen a company go through this metamorphosis, coming to you, that's a company that's growing, but you've been able to take them on the unicorn path from the time you met with them, and the kind of steps, and what were the results? How did it, because we have these companies from all over the world. They look at us through different venues, where it's Spotify or Anchor FM or Google or Apple. But tell us, some examples, because I try to tell them how powerful PR is, and I know you're the best in the world at this stuff. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. Happy to share it. I mean, usually it starts that they have a certain issue or a challenge, right, that they are facing. And what we believe with communication, we consult. For example, there was recently a fintech company that came to us and said, you know what, we are looking for investors. We think we have a credible story. We have great clients. We have a great product. We are marketed, but nobody knows us. And even our M&A consultants are not really like working the way we wish they were. And then we formed with them a strategy. And long story short, sometimes also here, it's not the big brand media and the big shows or the big outlets. It was a very kind of niche, but very targeted to the fintech audience, industry blog or brand, right? Where it's not about the amount of people who are reading it, right? It's about the right people, right? The entire industry is reading it, but from the pure numbers, it's maybe a couple of thousand that are actually reading it. But we knew that every investor interested in fintech reads that blog. So we organized them an interview, a portrait, where they could explain what they do, what they do. And after this was published, they received 6 very specific requests from tier 1 VCs that wanted to invest in them, right? And when you see here, and that's why it's sometimes also, how do you value that, right? I mean, it's something that it comes to the question, what is PR worth on return on investment? It's a bit like asking for the return on investment for your mother, right? I mean, it's like a bit like, you know what? It's like, that's why I also don't believe really in that.
I remember that, Tilo, the return investment for your mother.
It's like sometimes a bit like awkward when you have this kind of question, like, what is the article like, or word, right? How should you charge for it? Or is it the 10 minutes you called with the journalist that you're paying for, or what actually, right? So this is one example. Another example, I guess, is it's to the point where you said sales, right? I mean, we had some clients with an incredible track record. The clients were praising them, but they always never managed to bring their case studies into the media, right? It's like, yeah, that's boring. Nobody wants just a case study, and right, nobody does just PR for you or advertising, right? And then who would support that, right? And then they say, do an ad, right? A billboard or whatever. But we found out a very clever strategy where we could, with these clients who've been often very prestigious big names, could do actually things together. And instead of pitching just the founder, we pitched them together with their client. And it was actually a story then about digital transformation. And this was actually a kind of a role model and a great story for these news outlets and also for these conference organizers that said, okay, it's not just a company that promotes their solution. We actually have also the company that buys the product, uses the product, and they can tell a story of transformation, right? The problem that they had faced before, and now how this kind of hero's journey goes, and how this kind of startup helped this big corporate to transform or go alongside with them on this journey of digital transformation. So that was another great story. But also when it comes, for example, with a client that had massive issues of getting the right talent, right? Because they've been in a very specific field. So also here we helped them telling the stories from their own people, because they didn't even realize how much incredible and amazing talent the people have. They know what they do on their workplace, but what their personal backgrounds is, where they're coming from, and what their personal stories is, they totally forgot or ignored it. However, we did an incredible campaign on TikTok, on Instagram, and all these channels, and really brought this company to life. People could really feel and sense what it is to work there, and what kind of incredible achievements this company has, and that you want to be part of this story or this world-changing company. So you can see sometimes you have to literally open their eyes of the and let them look what you have, right? And the stories is right in front or right in front of you, right? And also, of course, also then forming an overall strategy. And as you know, we're working with a lot of international and globally recognized companies. Also realize that every country is different, right? I mean, just because you're successful in the US doesn't mean automatically when you expand to Germany or France or whatever market that it will be the same, because you start from zero, right? And you have to adapt and adjust your story to the local market, and also do a kind of cultural transformation here, and do a media training to understand how the local journalists work, etc. So there are a lot of things that, of course, are important to pay attention to. But yeah, and this kind of transformation, as you said, being a kind of unicorn factory or like a hero factory for entrepreneurs, is often also in the fact, and you know that, Gary, as a successful investor, that especially in startups, where often they have a great idea, a great product, but there's not crazy revenue or crazy whatever. Often 50% of the valuation of a startup is the narrative, right? Of course, they have to have their number right, and the investors want to see that it's going towards a hockey stick, and the clients are sticky, and everything is going in the right direction. 50% is the narrative. And you have often 3-4 companies that are doing the same thing in the world, right? But one is the one that gets all the money from the tier 1 investors and like kind of goes through the roof. And the other one's like, are we doing the same and nobody gives a shit, right? What are we doing? So this is often narrative, the story that is told outside. And again, it's not enough to be good and have a great product. You have to go out there and tell your story.
Yeah, no, the storytelling part and the wow statements to make them excited about the company, coming up with those pieces, and how to get to those top level executives to be able to get the powerful, the strategic partners is important. You're right. And it's all, it's kind of like one thing, right? It's like, as you say in German, right? The Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. It's tying all these pieces together. If you want to build $1 billion company, you got to have all these pieces working in like a symphony orchestra. They got to be working together, and having somebody like you involved that's the PR guru is incredible. So you've worked with large companies like Shopify and Google and Microsoft and those kind of companies. In terms of the earlier stage companies, when do you meet with them? When's a good time to get together? Well, let's say they're early stage, seed stage company. Is it at the seed stage? Is it later? Is it earlier? When's the best time for them to come to somebody?
So the rule of thumb is usually Series A and beyond, where they often come when it's global companies that would, for example, want to enter the, let's say, German market. Then it's often a little bit later when they're thinking about it, let's say Series B or so. But I mean, roughly Series A plus minus is a good way to start, and because then you have, of course, your proof of concept, proof of market, product market fit, and of course also some money on the bank to really do something substantial. But if you are more seed, early stage, I mean, still this is a very important topic that you should, as a founder, take serious and still do PR. It's not just I talked about ourselves, right? When it makes sense to engage with us, but even if you're very early, I mean, it's important to get your word out there and talk about what you do and make your own first experiences, right? And sometimes it's good to start with a freelancer or you do it by yourself and reaching out because you're maybe in a niche market where you can then reach out to the handful of media that's relevant for you by yourself, and do your first baby steps, or being on a conference and speaking there and talking to journalists on the ground. But of course, working with a professional agency and someone who's like a expert in his field helps often, of course, leverage opportunities, right? And we, of course, know how to make things also bigger and also to package it in a way that it makes sense and give give them also like a bigger outreach. And as you said, there's so many disciplines. I mean, alone when you look at media relations, PR, right? It's crisis communication, press releases. It's all about the connections with the journalist, the media relations, the wording, messaging, positioning, etc. There's so many things that you have to consider, right? And knowing how media works, how journalists work, etc. There's just one part. When you then think about how to communicate it in a digital world, right? How do you communicate it in a digital, let's say, business environment like LinkedIn? How do you communicate it on TikTok or with short form videos? Or how do you do that in a more visual and pictures environment like Instagram? You see where I'm going
Yeah.
to, right? And it's like just it becomes very complex. And then when you think about content marketing, your blog, you think about a white paper, surveys, etc., right? And then to parts like key opinion leader, influencers that can transport your message, conferences, speaking opportunities. It's very, very complex, right? And so, yeah,
Well, it sounds
these
like
things are.
you're doing an incredible job, Tilo. Incredible job. And listen, we're coming up to the top of the show. Closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you?
So I mean, it's always good to follow me on LinkedIn and be friends there. I'm also on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever platform they want and prefer. I just can encourage everyone to don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Better stories, bigger impact for your business. This is definitely a message that everyone should understand. And even we crossed so many topics today, but if we are thinking strategically and say what is really important, where should we begin, right? And start with the basics, right? Having a good story, be clear about our problem, the solution that we provide, have some proof points. It's already a good start, right? And there are opportunities, and you should take them, be it on speaking at conferences or being guest on a podcast, etc. Use the opportunities that you have. Don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Don't think that for your product, for your target group, it is not necessary or can't help. That's simply not true. Always have in mind that you have different target groups, not just your client, right? It's also your employees, yes, other stakeholders like policymakers, investors, etc. And take that serious because that's the most valuable thing you have, right? I mean, that you can't just buy with money, right? You can buy a lot of things with money, but your reputation is something that is here on stake. And always remind yourself that if you don't tell your story, someone else will, that maybe people that are not in your favor and maybe want to trick you or want to destroy your brand because they're your competition or people who don't like you, etc. So be in control, take that seriously, and become a good communicator. That's part of the game.
Yeah. No, I love that. Become a good communicator. That's part of it. That's part of sales. That's part of marketing. That's part of growing a company. Tila, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us today. It's really appreciated as always. And to my audience out
Thank you so
there,
much.
thank you for joining one more time. GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And I'm your host, Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. See you again soon.